Hello, bariatric care friends. Welcome to the podcast. This is going to be an exciting episode because I am talking with a woman who I know very little about. We've talked for a few minutes, and I'm telling you what, I just said this is going to be an amazing episode because people are going to love to hear your story. And you'll see why in just a minute. So let me introduce you to Kenda. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say your last name. I don't know if that's anything you want to do. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Wow. So you're in Tennessee,
Yes, yes,
just north of me in Atlanta.
yes.
Yeah. And yet we're an hour apart in time, right? Or are we
I
on the
know.
same?
Isn't that crazy
I
that
know.
those darn time zones?
Okay, here's a crazy question. If you live like across the border from the time zone, does that mess people up? Like if you're right on that line?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They have, it's funny when trying to schedule patients with specialists, there are some of my patients who go to specialists in another time zone and we have to remind them that you need to
Oh my
remember you're going to
gosh.
be changing time zones.
Absolutely, because I'll bet you guys have patients showing up late, early, whatever, all the time. Gosh. Okay. So you said patients. What is it you do?
Yes. I am a nurse practitioner. Primary care. I am in my own practice. It's just me and my nurses and my wonderful office staff. I have been a primary care provider for about 12 years.
Wow.
Absolutely love it. I practice in the same town that I grew up in.
Oh,
And I was just telling Dr. Connie that my first grade teacher is one of my patients. She is 87. I it's a challenge and a blessing to
absolutely.
go to the grocery store and see all your patients who
Oh,
want to talk to you.
I'll bet.
And I just love it. I love my job, I love my profession, and I love being able to interact with my hometown folks.
So you're in a fairly small town, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
we are, I think our latest census, we're 20,000-ish, so
Oh,
fairly
Lord.
small.
So
Yeah.
you can't go anywhere.
No.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I that has got to be interesting.
It is. It definitely is. I will tell my office staff if I have to run to the grocery store during lunch, I'll say, "Pray for me, I'm going in."
For sure. It's like I might be back in 3 hours,
That's
depending on
right.
how often you get stopped. That is so
Oh, it's
funny.
a
I had a funny story about running into a primary school teacher in my adult life, and this is really interesting. So I'm in recovery, right?
mhm.
And I've been in recovery from prescription pain medication was my drug of choice. But before that it was alcohol in college. So I'm at an AA meeting and I'm in my mid early 30s, I would say. And I went to a Catholic school. So at that time, it was all nuns and they wore the habits, right? So who knows
Mhm.
what anybody looked like. So I'm at this AA meeting. This woman comes up to me afterwards, no longer a nun. And she says to me, I taught you when you were in like third grade. I'm like, no way. It was crazy. Crazy, crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness. Well, my patients and friends who are in recovery and go to meetings tell me that if you don't wanna see anybody that you know in a small town, go to your meeting there because all the people go to other towns because they don't wanna run into anybody.
I'm
So
sure.
if you wanna stay anonymous, go to your town because it's full of people from all the towns around you.
That is so funny. I'll bet that's true too. So you were telling me
Absolutely.
when we were chatting ahead of time that you started your nursing profession working as a nurse's aide.
Yes, absolutely. I worked in a nursing home. My sister has been an RN for many years, and she's when I first became an adult, my career, I was a cosmetologist. I was a
Okay.
hairdresser,
That's why you got
and
such cute hair.
well, thank you. But as you well know, that is not necessarily a steady income.
Sure,
Very dependent on the economy, very people
sure.
when money is short, that's one of the first things that you give up,
You
those
bet.
extras. So as I got older and wanted a more reliable way to support myself, I looked at healthcare. My sister suggested that I start out before I dove in completely, start out as a nurse's aide, work in a nursing home, which I did. I worked in a nursing home when I was going through nursing school to get my registered nurse. And
Great.
then after I got that first degree, I was able to start working as a nurse and just kind of incrementally built on degrees after that.
That is so wonderful. I tell you, I am so impressed and just I just think that that is such a great profession,
It
and the way you get to do things your way now because you have worked so hard, and this is going to come into our conversation later. Consistent effort, right? You didn't
absolutely.
become you didn't get a PhD in nursing by wishing it to happen,
No,
right?
no,
And
no,
you started
absolutely.
at the very beginning as a
Yes,
nurse's aide, and
right.
incrementally, practice makes progress, right? And a
Absolutely.
little step at a time, and you moved further along. And that is going to be really important when we talk about the bariatric journey because people want to jump from the beginning and be, you know, 200 pounds to less 2 weeks later and stay that way
Absolutely.
for life. But that's not how it works.
No,
Yeah.
no. You've got to
So,
build those habits and
right.
talking about my career, I always felt that I never wanted to supervise or tell anybody to do something that I had not done
Exactly.
or I did not know how to do. So that was very important for me.
Exactly.
And that kind of leads to where what led one of the things that led me to the decision to have weight loss surgery is it's hard to be an advocate for your patients to be in better health, to attain better health
Mm,
when you're not advocating for yourself.
absolutely.
So I felt like I owed myself and my patients a healthier me.
So you're
So,
not, yeah, not only are the patients going to love the content, but they're just going to love listening to you.
oh,
You have such a beautiful, beautiful, sweet Southern accent. I love it so much.
oh,
I'm gonna
thank
I'm
you.
gonna date myself really badly here. So my first job, remember I went to that Catholic school? Well, at the age of 14, I got a job at a retirement home for retired nuns. There was this
Oh,
huge
wow.
convent in the town where I lived, like maybe 2 or 3 miles from our house. And they would hire young people. I was 14. So 14 years old, I get on my bike, I ride my bike to the place, and it's this huge convent. So they had all kinds of things going on there, but one of the floors in the retirement home section was an infirmary. And so it was elderly women, retired nuns, and I was a nurse's aide at 14.
Oh, wow.
And talk about things that would be so illegal at this date.
Absolutely.
I was passing meds.
Mhm.
No idea, right? I mean,
Right.
crazy things, but I loved that job
Mhm.
so much and
Mhm.
learned so much about life and compassion and not being afraid of elderly people. And
Absolutely.
oh my gosh, I just became really attached to one of those women, the retired nuns, and that lasted our relationship until I was way into college. So it
Wow.
was really a beautiful experience for me. So you
Wow.
started out at the beginning, and I feel similarly. In my role, I didn't go back to school I didn't get my master's or my PhD until after several years after I had been in recovery.
Mhm.
And so I feel very similarly. I'm not going to ask my patients to do anything, the hard work of therapy that I didn't do. I was in therapy for 3 or 4 years before I went back to school. So I absolutely respect that. So were you overweight when your younger years, or was that tell us your weight?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have struggled with my weight my entire life.
Mhm.
My father did not have a weight problem, but my mother did. So a lot of it was, of course, genetic, environmental. I mirrored her choices,
Sure.
and I remember yo-yo. The first time I was on a diet, I was in second grade,
Oh gosh, that
and
hurts my heart.
my mother uh, and I went on the Scarsdale medical diet. And I
You were
went
8?
to, yes, I went to elementary school at a school very close to my house. My mother got my doctor to sign a form. She came and picked me up at lunch, brought me home, and we ate cottage cheese and fruit and hamburger patties. That was part of the Scarsdale diet. So I have struggled with my weight my
Wow.
whole life. When I've successfully lost many times, but didn't keep those skills. Didn't I remember you did one of your podcasts or one of your daily talks, you said something about old habits creeping back in. Uh,
Neat, 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 neat.
they my old habits grew legs and crept
Yes.
in. So, my choices
Mhm.
changed.
Yeah.
When I was working on my doctorate, that was when I reached my highest weight. I used food as a stress reliever, self-soother, as
Sure.
most of us do.
Yep.
So it has been a struggle my whole life. And as I saw my mobility lessen,
Sure.
more blood pressure medicine be added, being on the verge of needing cholesterol medicine,
Right.
and really not being able to do the things that I wanted to do. That
And
is what led me to
okay.
contemplate weight loss
When
surgery.
did you start contemplating it? And were you having the trouble with your own health while you were doing
Mm.
your own practice? And what was that
Yes.
like for you in your head?
Well, I have had so many patients over the years be successful with bariatric surgery.
Okay.
And I have written those letters of support from the
Sure.
PCP so many times. And in the back of my mind, I thought, why am I not doing this? And there was always fear. It was very
Sure.
much fear driven.
Mhm.
So, what kind of led me to really think about weight loss surgery, and it goes back to one of the things we're talking about today. I went, love to travel. My last trip before I decided to have weight loss surgery, I went to Croatia and Bosnia.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh,
I remember walking on, there's a wall that goes around Dubrovnik. And I remember trying to walk on that wall and it being so hard.
mm.
And it was so beautiful. A
Oh,
place that it was just a place of dreams. And
right,
me thinking, I'm so lucky to be here and I can't enjoy it fully.
right.
So when I came home from that trip, that's when I made the decision on the plane. I actually journal. I
Wow.
wrote in my journal, when I get home, I'm going to check on this. And made the appointment, started the process that that month.
That's great. So most of the time we have a something that happens, right?
Mhm.
Something that happens that says, "Okay,
Absolutely.
that's it." So good,
Yes.
wonderful. All right, so how long ago did you have your surgery? What surgery did you have?
I had gastric bypass.
Oh,
I'm not quite at a year. I'll be a
wow.
year the week of Thanksgiving. I
Oh
had it
my
the day before
gosh.
Thanksgiving.
Wow, honeymoon woman.
Well, when you're in practice by yourself, you
Sure,
have to minimize time off. So
sure
we
do.
were already going to be closed Thursday and Friday. I had surgery on Wednesday and I went back to work on Monday.
No, no,
I did.
really?
I did. Now, I set my own schedule. I
Right.
made sure we had a light schedule. I have wonderful coworkers
Oh, that's beautiful.
who really picked up my slack, helped me pick up things when I dropped them.
Sure, sure.
But I was determined. I had no complications. I was very, very fortunate
Oh,
and
beautiful.
didn't have to take pain medication after I
Wow.
got home.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I was very, very fortunate
Wow.
and determined
I
that
was gonna
I
say that
knew
word
that.
determined, I think that
Yes.
describes you in a lot of your life.
So I did that, like I said, last year, the day before
That's
Thanksgiving.
fantastic.
Yes.
So when did you start feeling more energy as the weight came off? When did you start really
Yeah.
noticing like, wow, this was
Within, of course, after surgery, most people, and I did as well, experience some fatigue. I probably really had that surge of energy at about 6 weeks.
okay.
I thought, "Oh my gosh, I feel so good." And
Oh,
I hadn't lost that much weight at that point. I
okay.
mean, probably 20 pounds, but I just felt great. My blood pressure was already beginning to come down. I was already beginning to need to
Wow.
reach out to my PCP to tweak some of my medication.
Seriously.
Yes, within
That
6 weeks.
is so cool.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
And then I traveled internationally when I was 5 months post-op, was my first international trip.
Where'd you go?
And I started off in Budapest
Wow.
and was gone 2 weeks, ended up, I think we hit 6 countries. I went to, pretty much the rest of the Balkans that I had not
Right,
covered.
right.
So, went to Bulgaria, Kosovo, Serbia, Albania, just hit that whole area.
Oh my gosh. And that is definitely one of the things I want to talk about is as you travel, as a bariatric patient, what's
Mhm.
that been like compared to how you traveled prior to? But let's talk about this love of traveling. And do you have
Yes.
family? And I see that beautiful poster behind you. I love
Oh,
that beautiful picture.
adventure is in
Oh,
my soul.
clearly. So tell us about this love of travel, when it started. Where have you been?
Oh gosh. Well, I did not travel outside of the country, uh, except for Canada, the Caribbean, until
Right.
I was 30.
Okay.
And my father was a huge history buff. I
Okay.
grew up watching a lot of National Geographic, and
Mhm.
he was never able to, due to his health concerns, finances. He was the
Sure.
caregiver for elderly parents,
Oh, wow.
and he always instilled in me, if you can travel. My
Beautiful.
mother loved to travel within the United States. So as soon as I got the opportunity, I started traveling. I didn't have anybody to travel with, and I was not going to let that hold me up.
My gosh,
I
I love
I
that.
found actually, my mother saw an ad in our local little small town newspaper about a group of school teachers
Okay.
who were getting together a trip during the summer to go to the British Isles. And she called me and said, "You've always wanted to go there." And I said,
Oh,
"Mom, I don't know these people." She said, "Not yet."
I
So
love that.
so that was my first trip. I think there were 6 of us on this trip. Didn't know
No.
a one of them,
Oh, I love you.
but we made friends. I'm still in contact with them.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
I took a few trips with them, and then the lady who kind of spearheaded that started having some health concerns. So she quit doing trips, and here again, I said, I'm not going to let that stop me.
Good
So
for
I
you.
did some research and found the women's travel industry is a big deal.
Okay.
Women are becoming more independent. They're
Yes.
not waiting on husbands to take them places. They're
Right?
not waiting on friends to go with them. So,
Yes.
women's independent travel is a big thing.
That's
So,
awesome.
I found 2 or 3 companies that arrange travel for women.
Nice.
And the first trip that I went on was to Poland with
Oh,
them.
love
Didn't know
it.
a soul.
And how
I
big
had a
are these
great
groups?
time. Small groups, less than 12, but
I
usually the
love
limit
that.
is 12, but usually 6 to 8.
I love that.
And it's women who are married. I'm married. My husband does not care to travel. Um,
Seriously.
no, can't stand it. Can't stand it. Our very first date, I told him I was going on vacation in 2 weeks, and he said, "Oh, where are you going?" And I said, "Egypt." And he said, "Oh my, I hope
Oh
you don't
my!
I hope you don't want anybody to travel with you." And I said, "No, I'm not looking for that."
Perfect.
So, absolutely. And he supports my love of adventure,
Good.
but I have traveled lots with different groups where did not know anybody. You
Okay.
meet up with the people, with the group at the destination, and just it's a mixture of married women who partners don't want to travel,
Right?
single women, divorced women, widowed women,
That.
just a great and most of the time I have found if a woman is independent enough to travel halfway across the world, they're going to be a
Right?
lot of fun.
Oh, for
And
sure.
just had a great time and and actually met a couple of ladies on those trips that we have traveled outside of groups together. I just got back
I was
2
just
weeks
gonna ask.
ago from Scandinavia. I went
Oh,
to
how was it?
Copenhagen, Sweden, and or Denmark, Sweden, and Norway with a lady that I met in Greece 10 years ago.
You're
And
kidding. I love
yeah,
that.
yes.
So
But
you meet
go
these
ahead, I'm
people
sorry.
you meet the people at the destination, not like y'all like
Yes.
and are they
No.
from all over the world or
Absolutely, all over the world,
that is so
mostly
cool.
US, but some Canadians, Australians, Brits, just all over, and
That is amazing.
everything from stay-at-home moms to judges. I have my friend that I went to Scandinavia with is a urologist,
I
and
love it.
we, just connect
Oh, that
and
is so
stay in touch.
I have a friend, a female friend who is single, and she started going on she went on this cruise that had a speaker. It was, kind of a
Mhm,
famous person, and they did these cruises with this same person over and so she met this group of people that she traveled all these different places
mhm,
around the world because these cruises were everywhere around the world. And so many people because it was always the same person that they went to see. And
right.
the person got older and so quit doing the things, but I just think that is so remarkable and so much fun.
Well, I tell people who ask me about it, don't let fear and not having somebody to travel with hold you back. If you have the health to travel, if you have the resources, don't wait on the person to go with you.
Right.
Find your tribe. Find your
Right.
tribe to travel with.
And if
But
we take this into the bariatric world,
mhm.
right? Not the traveling, but the
Yeah.
concept that you're saying right there is if your people in your world are like naysayers about the surgery or you're in a home or an environment where they're not all supportive completely,
Mhm.
do what you need to do for you. Feel the
Absolutely.
fear, do it anyway, right?
Mhm.
Because
Absolutely.
nobody's gonna do it for you. Nobody's gonna travel for you or go with you every time you wanna go somewhere, but you do it anyway, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And reach out to find those people.
Right.
My bariatric program, my surgeon retired. It has actually the practice has been taken over by a different organization, and they are not having regular support groups anymore.
Oh,
So I found bariatric care.
I
I
love it.
found s- other resources. Dr. Susan
Yeah,
Mitchell. I found
I love
other
her. She's my
yeah,
buddy.
yes, found other places to get that support that I need. And that's what you have to do in life is
Right.
find what you need, advocate for yourself, speak up. And talking about traveling as a bariatric patient and how it's
Yes.
changed prior to my weight loss.
Mhm.
I always felt like, or had the fear that I was holding people back.
Oh,
Many times I was the largest person in my group.
sure.
I was the person who I felt like maybe others had to modify their
Oh,
behavior because
sure.
of,
Yeah.
people tend to people are kind.
Mhm.
And I have found pretty much across the board. And when you go places and the leader presents you with, would you like to do this or this? I always had a fear that people were thinking, Kenda may not be able to do that.
Oh, sure.
So I hated being that
Oh, I'm sure.
feeling like maybe people were avoiding things they might enjoy doing because of me.
Mhm.
And feeling like I was not able to do everything that I wanted to do.
Right, right.
Going to these amazing places, not being able to fully enjoy it,
Sure.
having to go to, especially in Asia, where everybody's that big, and
Right.
go to go to restaurants and think, "Oh my gosh, am I gonna break one of the chairs? Am I not gonna,"
Sure.
in this country, the bariatric population, we have somewhat adjusted for. Other
Right.
places, they don't. So you're
Sure.
going to their territory, and I wanted to be able to enjoy that. So since surgery, since losing, I've lost 121 pounds.
My goodness, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm off all of my blood pressure medicine.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Just feel great. But since then, I think I've been to 9 countries since
Oh, that's
surgery.
glorious. Oh my gosh, and it's
And
not been a year
yes,
and you've been to 9
yes.
countries. That is so exciting.
I have been able to enjoy things so much more.
Oh,
Been
good.
able to, when I'm on a trip, getting 20,000 plus steps a day,
Oh my gosh.
walking, not having to think, gosh, can we get a cab back to the hotel? Let's
Right.
just walk. And being able to do that, it is just amazing. When I took my first trip post op, like I said, I was 5 months post op. It was a learning experience. I was so nervous that I was not going to find food that was in my plan
You
that
bet.
were that was good choices for me. I packed a suitcase full of protein shakes and
Love
took
it.
with
Good
me.
for you. Good
I
50
was
pounds of
just
protein shakes.
Yes, I
The
thought,
limit.
if all else fails, I'm gonna have a Fairlife protein shake, and I'm
That was
taking
smart.
it on the road. And I don't think I drank a single protein shake.
No way.
No, I was always when you look for it, you'll find it. I
Oh
was
gosh.
always
Say
able
that
to
again.
Yes, when you look for it, you will find it. If you're 120
If you're
pounds ago,
dedicated.
I was looking for pastries,
Right.
and I was looking for bread and pasta.
Sure.
I wasn't looking at those healthier choices. Since surgery, I have sought them out, and almost all hotels in the morning breakfast, you're gonna have eggs. You're gonna
Absolutely.
have, especially in Europe, you're gonna have cheeses, you're gonna have unsweetened yogurt, you're gonna have
Yes.
some fruit, even vegetables in the morning.
I love it.
So I learned that I don't have to carry all that with me.
But you know what I love? You were prepared. You were and this
Absolutely.
is one of the things that I love. You're saying so many amazing things. We have to be prepared, right? And you were like, "I am going to make this work. So if this is what I have to do, if I have to pay for an extra piece
Extra
of luggage,
suitcase.
yeah, and take the full 52 pounds you're allowed on the plane or whatever it is, then I'm gonna do it."
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
dedication.
I was determined. Travel was my why, one of my whys, and I
Yes.
wasn't gonna let anything stop me from that.
Well, you didn't
So
before, which is also an amazing lesson from your story.
right,
It's like,
right.
don't let anything stop you and look for what you need and seek
Yes.
it out and get it.
Absolutely, absolutely. This trip, I didn't carry a suitcase full of protein shakes
Mhm.
because having experienced it,
Right.
I knew that I would be able to find healthy options.
Mhm.
I did pack things like nuts,
Right.
some protein bars because
Sure.
of the language barrier.
Right.
When, we have to be label detectives to look at hidden sugar. Not
Right.
being able to
That's
read
true.
it, I didn't want to get
Yeah.
what I thought was a healthy protein bar at a
Right.
grocery store and have a dumping episode because of it.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So I did take things like that. Every town that we went to, I found a market, which, as you know, Europe is so much more walkable than the
Yes.
US. I found the local grocery.
Love it.
My habit now, every night, I have raw veggies and some protein ranch dip, which I just make out of unsweetened Greek yogurt and
Love
ranch
it.
powder. I
Perfect.
carried some ranch powder with me, and the minute we hit the ground in each city, I sought out a grocery. I got unsweetened Greek yogurt. I
Right.
got carrots, cucumbers, celery,
Yeah.
and maintained that habit every night. I had that snack.
That's beautiful.
Got fresh fruit, cheese, uh, grapes, strawberries, just
Right.
things to have on hand,
Right.
and carried my protein bar with me in case we got out when I wasn't able to find a healthy meal.
Plus, as a
The other
bariatric patient, you might need to eat more frequently,
Absolutely.
right? So you made sure
Absolutely.
you were prepared.
Absolutely. My program recommended every 3 to 4 hours, which I
Right.
think is pretty common across the
Right.
board, so I wanted to have those things with me,
Absolutely.
and
So smart.
I spoke up to our tour leader, our guide, which the last I've done several the last few trips, when I went the last 2 since I've been post-op, it was just me and friends, and we hired guides,
Oh,
so we weren't with a group, but I made them very aware. I told
good.
the guides, I can't eat this. It's not a
Right.
good choice for me. I
Right.
can't go to a bakery
Right.
and eat a pastry. That's not something
Right.
that will sit well with me, and I need to eat every 3 to 4 hours. And my friend that I went on the last trip with, she's a physician, so she's very aware of it. But we would go to restaurants, look at a menu, and if there wasn't something that I felt like was a good choice
Oh,
for me, we would move on.
what
So,
great supportive friends.
absolutely, I'm very fortunate to have supportive family, supportive friends, and to have found my bariatric community that's also very supportive.
So even if you're not a bariatric patient, and I just want to say
Mhm.
this because I've worked in this field for so long that I have very much adopted the bariatric way of eating because I think it is just super healthy. And my husband too, because he was an obese teenager and
Mhm.
he lost a lot of weight when he went to college and he's struggled, but he has maintained his weight very, very well. But we also, when we travel, we take protein bars. We
Mhm.
take I always take my certain things with me, and it doesn't matter if we're going abroad or not. So you can do that, right? You can I love it. You
Absolutely.
take your ranch powder with you, and it's just so smart. So people need to, you know, think ahead,
Mhm.
make sure you have what you need, tell the people that you're with, "This
Mhm.
is what works for me, this is what won't work for me," and I'm the same way. If I can't get, lean protein and vegetables,
Mhm.
I'm not eating there,
Right.
and I
Right.
will
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Absolutely. We ran into in and I was so thankful that I had a good guide. One of the things in, of course, Denmark, Danish is,
Oh
and
gosh,
I didn't want my friend to miss out on that.
right,
She's not on the same
right,
journey as me, and
right,
thankfully that's not a trigger food for me.
yes,
So we went somewhere where she could enjoy those things, and then went somewhere where I could get some good cheese.
I love
And you have to give and take.
that's right, you have to make it a win-win, right?
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
that is a carryover to other areas of life too. Relationships, right? Being willing to say, this is what I want. This is what I need.
Right.
What is it you want and what is you need? And how can we make that a win-win? So
Absolutely.
so many life lessons in this,
Oh.
what you're saying is just beautiful. So what other kinds of things come to your mind when it comes to your travel and bariatric surgery?
Well, I think that being like I said, being able to more fully enjoy the
Yes.
experience,
Yes.
being able I have found that and I do dump if I eat, sugar, if I eat too much, which I'm actually kind of thankful for. I feel
Right?
like that's kind of a negative
Yes.
reinforcement loop.
Right.
Um, but it's amazing, like I said earlier, when you look for things, what you can find. And I have been able to try the local foods, to enjoy local cuisine,
Love it.
and just speak up about what I can and what I can't eat, or what I choose to eat. The other big thing that is so wonderful, it's not being able to have or not having to have a seatbelt extender.
Oh, for
That is
sure.
a game changer. The
Yes.
shame of having to ask for a seatbelt extender on a plane. I
Sure.
actually bought one
Right.
and carried it with
A
me,
lot of people do.
um, because I didn't want to go through that.
Yeah.
Not having to do that and being able to comfortably fit into a seat. I actually went to before I went to Scandinavia, the month before I went to Mexico for a long
How
weekend with
fun.
one of the girls in my office, and we had a change in flight. Our regular flight was canceled and they put us on another flight. I ended up in a middle seat. A year ago, that would have been pure torture for me and probably for the
Absolutely.
people around me. I was comfortable. I
Oh, I'm so
wasn't,
happy to hear that.
the middle seat is never anybody's choice,
Right.
but I did not feel like I was infringing on other
Right.
people's space.
Yeah.
And that was wonderful. And that takes a lot of fear when you know that you can do things if you need to, knowing that if I can't get a cab, I can walk back.
Oh, for sure.
N- Knowing that I can walk up the hill to see that view
Right.
if the guide suggests it.
Right.
That really removes a lot of fear.
I'll bet.
And that's a wonderful thing about traveling as a post-op and
Absolutely.
being as I have said, I'm just so thankful to be able. I wish I could double back and go to some of the places that I went to when I couldn't do all the things that I
Right.
wanted to do. But you know what? There's a lot of countries left. I've been to 71,
Have you
and
really?
yes, ma'am. And
Holy moly. So
I
you can't
would,
even tell us all the places you've been. You have one of those little pin boards where
yes,
you
I
put
do.
oh, that's
I sure do.
beautiful.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And but there's a lot more places to go, and I'm going to enjoy them a whole lot more than I would have before I had this tool.
That is glorious. So let's just talk about travel just a little bit because
Okay.
I totally love to travel. But before we go there,
Mhm.
you know, as you're talking, and my style is very firm and fair. As
Mhm.
you're talking, and I hear about how much effort you put into making sure that
Mhm.
you were able to get what you need as a post-op to
Mhm.
stay in line with healthy eating and
Mhm.
lifestyle. And I just want to say to the people who are at home with the grocery store half a block away and say, I don't have time, or I don't like to cook, or whatever. Come on,
Yes.
come on.
Yes.
It can be done.
Absolutely. Well, and I tell my patients and am so thankful for my for myself that I feel like your home needs to be a safe space.
I do too.
You don't need crap in your house
Agreed.
that is not healthy. And as I've heard you say many times, I don't have small children, but your kids don't need it either.
That's right.
And if you have another adult who lives in your house who chooses to eat that, out of respect for you, I think it's very fair to say to them, can you put that where I'm not having to walk by it?
Yeah.
And I think that that is having that courage to
Yes.
stand up for yourself and
Yes.
to advocate for yourself
Hmm.
is a big part of being successful.
I love that.
And I think that if people, I hate to say if people love you because that sounds silly, but if people respect you and you respect them,
Yes.
that's a very small thing to ask.
I agree. And I'm glad you brought that up because people are like, well, I can't. Yes, you can. Yes, you
Hmm.
can. And when people say, well, I don't understand, you don't have to understand, but I would
No,
appreciate you respecting, right?
absolutely.
Because it's really impossible to understand. It's like alcoholism. If people don't haven't been there, it's really hard to understand, right? And if
Absolutely.
people have,
Absolutely.
right? Because I can understand the weight world to a
Hmm.
degree, but I cannot
Hmm.
understand what it's like to have gone through surgery, right?
Right.
So you don't have to understand it to respect it and to
Yes.
respect what the needs of the person you love are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about your role with your patients because what an
Hmm.
amazing role model you are. And they're not
Thank you.
going to come to you with a bunch of excuses because you're living
Right.
it, right? I love that. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I feel like I made the decision for me that what was right was to be very open
Good.
with my patients.
Mhm.
I wanted to when I made the choice to have weight loss surgery, I felt like it was the more reasonable thing for me to do given my role as a healthcare provider to be very upfront about my choices and the actions that I was taking to become healthier.
Mhm.
And I told from the very beginning, I told my patients, this is what I'm doing, this is what I have done, and I feel like that has opened the door for many of them who may be contemplating weight loss surgery, but didn't want to bring it up, didn't want, had fear regarding it. I feel like it has opened the door for some people to talk about it. Other times, I'm not afraid to start that conversation now
Good.
as somebody who has lost weight, as somebody who has had bariatric surgery.
Right.
I feel like that I am on a different ground now to be able to say to a patient who is struggling with their weight or who I'm needing to add another blood pressure medicine to
Right.
say to them, have you thought about
Mhm.
bariatric surgery? I went through it
Yes.
and I everybody is different, but this is how my experience went.
Oh,
This is what has happened to me. And I feel that if I had it's a private thing. Absolutely. And I have patients who don't want anybody to know that they've had weight loss surgery.
sure.
That's their choice.
Right.
But I felt like transparency. And when a patient said to me, I felt like that was a learning opportunity for my patients.
I agree. And I think in your role as a practitioner, and they can clearly see something's going on there,
Right,
right?
right,
What a wonderful um first of all, what a relief for the patient, right? To have you bring it up and they know you're not judging, right?
right. Absolutely.
What
I've
a
been there. I've
yeah,
been on that other side.
absolutely. And so what a gift for all of your patients. I just love
Thank you.
that. So they feel understood.
Yes, yes. And that's when you have until somebody has been through that, it's
Mhm.
hard. Like you said about alcoholism, about other addictions, you can have empathy,
Right.
you can have respect, but it's hard to actually open that door to a patient, especially when you're the person who is 100 and however many pounds overweight.
Right.
And I, it was very hard to have those conversations with the patient when I felt like I was not doing the best I could for my
Yeah,
health.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was curious about that. What was that like? Like if you went before you made the decision to have
Hmm.
surgery, how would or wouldn't you talk to your
Hmm.
patients about weight?
Right. Well, I felt like that my role was still to
Good,
guide them
good.
towards the healthiest lifestyle. And I would lead off with, I get it. I
Yes,
know it's hard.
yes.
I struggle with my weight. I have
Yeah,
to take blood pressure medicine.
right.
But if you could make some lifestyle changes, maybe things could be different for you.
Yeah.
And I was never afraid to bring it up,
Good for you.
but I did feel, that it was when you're talking to a patient about, even if you could kind of, we say if you could lose 5% of your
Right,
total body weight,
right.
you're going to see health benefits.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it's hard to talk the talk when you're not walking the walk.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure.
I did not feel, I always said it, but I always felt like that maybe my patients were like, "Well, if it's so darn easy, why haven't you done it?"
Yeah,
And
sure, sure. I can
and
imagine.
now I
Yeah.
can give them information about tools that could help them.
Yes. So as a post-op
Mhm.
and, your relationship with food
Mhm.
is changed.
Absolutely.
So it's
Absolutely.
always easier to look at that sort of retrospectively.
Yeah.
So when you
Yeah.
think about your relationship throughout your life and
Mhm.
what it's like now, can you talk just a little bit about that?
Sure. Sure. I think that most of us who struggle with obesity, we use food as a coping mechanism,
Sure.
as a medication, as a self-soother, a stress reliever, a boredom reliever.
Mhm,
And I was never a big sweet eater, which I'm
mhm,
thankful for,
mhm.
but I used food to self-medicate.
Sure.
And those issues had to be addressed before I could be successful as a postdoc.
Good for you.
I
Oh,
feel through a lot of therapy,
love it, love it, love it.
which I tell my patients, that is my number one prescription for
Oh, I
everything.
love that.
But I love food. I
Mhm,
love the taste of
mhm.
food. I enjoy food. Surgery hasn't changed that.
Right,
It has changed my choices. In things to enjoy, it has changed obviously the amount
right,
that I'm able to eat. The other thing that I think has really helped me, and this I think is something as a post-op and as somebody who has chosen to eat kind of in a bariatric friendly way like you have, I think for those of us who have struggled with obesity, there is this underlying anxiety about food,
yeah,
about when am I going to eat next? When am I going to eat next? You have this fear of hunger.
right,
Hunger is something very few of us actually fear, but we have a fear
right,
of it. Or
mhm,
few of us actually have, but we have a
right,
fear of it. And I think that eating on knowing that the best thing for you and what your program recommends is to eat every 3 to 4 hours. I
mhm.
think that gives a level of security
It's a great point.
that absolutely that I don't have to fear hunger because I'm going to need to eat something in about 3 or 4 hours to nourish my body to make sure I
Right,
get the nutrients that I need. So that gives a level of comfort and control.
right,
Whereas when I was pre-op and just kind of flying by the seat of my pants,
Mhm.
I might skip meals, come home, order pizza, eat
Right.
all of it,
Right.
and it would have been 10 hours since I ate. I would never do that now
Right.
because I know that I can't, that that's not what I'm told to do.
Right.
So my relationship with food has changed in that
Right.
it's a more planned relationship
Right.
now.
Well,
It's
what
it's an arranged marriage.
there you go. That's a great way to think about that. That is a really good way to look at that because you know
Yes,
what you're getting into, right?
absolutely.
Right? You signed up for that. So, so many of the things you're saying, I really, really love. You know, you recognize that you had an emotional relationship with food and that you needed to work on those other things. Otherwise, what would you turn to? Right?
Mhm.
And I
Absolutely.
also love that you acknowledge I love food. And have you
Absolutely.
found, and I'm sure you have because I love good food that is so
Mhm.
healthy, right? And you
Mhm.
can find the most amazing tasting food.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when I hear you I think it was a recent podcast you've said a couple of times when one of my pet peeves, and I had a patient a few days ago say, "I'm not a vegetable eater." And I remember you saying, "Well, I'm not a toothbrusher either, but I
Right.
make myself do it." And I think trying new things,
Mhm.
I never liked cabbage
Mhm.
before I had surgery. And I saw so many amazing recipes, cabbage salads,
Yeah.
going to Eastern Europe. That is what
Sure.
they use so much in salads instead of lettuce. And I tried it, and darn, I love it. I love
I
raw
love
cabbage
that.
salads. I love
I know.
cooked cabbage and things,
I do
and
too.
it's so healthy. And I think that challenging yourself to try new things,
Yes.
challenging yourself to be open minded, and
Yeah.
realizing your taste does change
Yes.
after surgery. And as your body becomes more adjusted, it's going to change further.
Exactly. So how about your marriage? How
Mhm.
did this change in so many areas affect your relationship with your husband?
Well, my husband has been extremely supportive.
Beautiful.
When I first approached him, now when we started dating, we dated for about 10 years before we got married.
Mm,
I was
he knew
working
you.
on, yes, I was in the beginning stages of working on my master's degree.
Okay.
And he, I was much thinner and have, through those behaviors that I used to deal with stress throughout my
Right.
career, throughout my education,
Sure.
um, my weight went up. He never, ever mentioned it.
What a
He
beautiful.
never said anything about that.
Oh.
And when I said something to him, we sat down, as he calls it, going to the couch. He's like, "Oh gosh, what's going to happen when I say I need to
I
talk
love it.
to you about something?"
Yeah.
But I brought up, I said, "I'm really thinking seriously about having weight loss surgery. What are your thoughts?" And he said, "Well, like what kind of surgery? Like liposuction?" And
Right.
I said, "No, I'm thinking about gastric bypass." And he really didn't know what it was. So
Sure.
I had to
Sure.
explain it to him.
Mhm.
And he said, "I love you heavy. I will love you not heavy. And I
Oh.
will support whatever you need." And he has health challenges of his own.
Mhm.
So we deal with that, but he has been very supportive. I've been very fortunate because I have, as you know, you see in the support groups, and I see in my patients, spouses not being so supportive
Right.
and letting
Yeah.
their fear
Right.
of how it's going to affect them,
Right.
especially if they maybe have unhealthy habits that they are. I had somebody say to me one time, well, my husband said, "Well, what about us going out for pizza? That's our, or we go out for
Right.
margaritas and tacos every
Right.
Tuesday."
Mhm.
What? what are we going to do? And I
Mhm.
thought, well, if your marriage is just based on margaritas and tacos, you've got other issues that you
For
need
sure,
to deal with.
right? Mm, yep,
But I haven't had to deal with that.
I think
So
that's so beautiful.
been very, very thankful about that. He's a great guy.
Love it. Okay, so one last thing I wanna
Yeah.
just pick your brain about because as a nurse practitioner,
Mhm.
um, do you educate other physicians, like your referral sources and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and how open are they to hearing about it or not?
Well, I think that thankfully, the younger, more freshly educated
Mhm.
uh, group is more open to it.
Good.
As we learn about obesity and
Right,
learn about the metabolic changes that
right,
happen in obese people,
right.
I feel like that is something that more healthcare providers are open to.
Good.
Now, your folks who graduated from medical school 40 years ago, and that's the last time they entered a hallowed hall of education,
Yes.
they are not quite. They still, a lot of them, that's a generalization, but a lot of them
Right,
still think obesity is the fault of the person who is obese, which absolutely you are accountable. You make choices,
right,
and there is certainly those choices lead to consequences.
right.
But I feel like that just saying to somebody,
Mm.
this is because of your poor choices,
Oh my
is
god,
not
and it's not the whole truth, right? We know
absolutely,
there are
absolutely.
so many factors, you
Yes,
know?
yes.
Yeah.
So I have been fortunate enough to interact with a lot of other healthcare providers
Yay.
as a post-op and have
Yay.
explained to them what I've done. And I feel like that, it's kind of impressed upon them that this is a surgery that may be more suitable than they thought it was for more people.
Yes. I'm so glad because you are in such a wonderful position to help open the minds of some of the other people who are in the healthcare field in your
Yeah.
capacity. And I just what an opportunity, and I'm so glad to hear that you are not afraid to broach the subject with them any more
No,
than you are afraid to broach the subject with your patients. So you
no,
are
no.
doing not only your patients a wonderful service, but the whole community a service. Because so many, as a patient, it's very hard to go to your physician and say, "Hey,
Mhm.
by the way, there's some things you might want to know." Because
Right, right.
a lot of people are intimidated or the physician's gonna go, "And who are you? Where's your degree?"
Mhm.
You have
Yeah.
a degree, right? You are qualified to talk about it from every angle. So I appreciate that you are doing that so
Thank you,
much.
thank you. I hope that it helps others make those changes that
Mhm.
will help them have better quality of life because that's what it's all about.
For sure. So just on the travel thing, I mean, people like different things, right? But what do you love when you travel? What kind of places do you like to go?
My favorite places in the world are mostly in Southeast Asia. I love
Really?
Vietnam.
I've
That is
heard
probably
that.
my favorite place that I have been. Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. Just the culture, the food,
Oh,
the
wow.
history.
Yeah.
It's, the feng shui of it all, just the
Right.
peace.
Yeah.
I love that. I like to go places that maybe I'm not going to hear more English than the local language.
Right, right.
Kind of off the beaten path. I
Mhm.
have, been. I actually went to the Silk Road countries. I went to a few years ago. I went to Turkmenistan, which
Where is
only
that?
issued
Here
like
I am, the
yes, it's in
geography, not a clue.
Central Asia. They only at that point they only issued less than like 300 visas a year to travelers.
Seriously.
And I went to Turkmenistan, Tajikistan,
Oh
and
my
Uzbekistan.
oh my gosh.
And that was the one of the best travel experiences because I felt like I was kind of on the front end of discovering those places. You know,
Yeah,
everybody's heard of Paris, everybody's
right,
heard of Rome,
right.
and they're wonderful places, and I love them. But maybe going somewhere that's
I
different
love that.
and that you're not going to see a McDonald's on every corner or a
Yeah.
Starbucks. I think that there's a lot to be said for that.
Oh my gosh, I gotta tell you this just because A, it's cool, and B, you've been these places. So, 2 of my grandsons are from families where I mean, they're genius. It's not my side of the family, it's my daughter-in-law's. I mean, like, like, there's smart people, and then there's
Right.
that
There's
level.
Mensa. Yeah.
Yeah, they're that level, and so at the ages of, like, 4 and 6, they knew every country, every capital of every like, those stands, they knew all the
Mhm.
stands, right?
Mhm.
They knew all the capitals, they knew the languages that people spoke.
Mhm.
It's like,
Wonderful.
holy moly, right? So I can't wait to tell them I've talked to somebody who's been to the stands. They will so appreciate that. Oh my
Oh,
gosh,
that's
that is
funny.
very exciting. Yeah, so I can't wait till they start doing their international travels because they just are
Awesome.
so fascinated with culture, and my daughter-in-law too, so I just appreciate that so
Good.
much about them. Yeah.
That's
So you
awesome.
are fascinating, and the messages that you brought into no matter what you were talking about, the lessons for post-ops, right, and pre-ops. Ask for what you need. Seek it out.
Mhm.
Feel the
Mhm.
fear, but do it anyway, right? Don't
Right.
let other people or things stand in your way of living fully. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there was and I hate to quote a title of a book without remembering the author, but I read a book years ago called Life Doesn't Begin, I think it was 20 pounds from now or something.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's
That's right.
very true.
That's
It's
right.
very true. Even when I was carrying that extra 121 pounds around,
Right.
I wanted to do things and I didn't let it stop me. And I'm very
Beautiful.
thankful now that I did that a
Right.
lot of countries ago.
Absolutely, and you didn't. Yeah, you didn't let it stop you. And the other thing is, and this comes back full circle to where we started, that it's constant effort, right?
Mhm.
All the things that you've talked about that you've done in your life have been because you wanted it and you were willing to work for it. And so, and from your career and all the things that you've done that you're going to have to keep working for it,
Absolutely.
right?
It's going to be it's like your videos. Weight loss is like a marriage.
Yeah, the
You
arranged
can't
marriage.
have the wedding
Yeah.
and say, "Well, we're done." I mean, this
That's
is going
exactly
to be a journey for the rest of my life. And if
yes.
I let those old behaviors creep in on their little legs,
Right,
then that old weight's going to creep back in.
right.
And the hindrances
Yeah,
that I have shed will creep back in, and I do not want
yeah.
that.
And I think you're also in a
So
good position in your job to keep
mhm,
yourself accountable, right?
absolutely,
Right?
I know that my patients are watching me,
You bet. You
and
bet.
I don't want to be that great aunt's best friend who I heard she had weight loss surgery. She gained all her weight back plus
Mhm.
20 pounds.
That's right.
No, I don't want to be that great aunt's best friend.
That's right. And I think that's a good lesson for people, start educating people, not in a pushy way, but just say,
Right.
"Gosh, you know what I learned about protein or whatever?" Because the more
Mhm.
we say it, the more we
Mhm.
hear it, and it's more ingrained in us.
Absolutely.
Right? And not
Absolutely.
everybody's a nurse practitioner, but we can all do that in our lives, whether it's to, "You know what I read the other day?" to your kids, or what I heard through a
Mhm.
friend, and then we're reinforcing it to ourselves. So we
Absolutely,
can
that
all
habit formation.
you bet. You bet. You are amazing and
Oh,
delightful, and
thank
I
you.
just enjoyed talking to you and just every bit of it.
Oh, well, thank you. I've enjoyed it as well,
Oh, thank you
and
for being here.
everybody need and I will say again, as a post-op, how much the bariatric care community has helped me,
Oh my
and
gosh.
if you're not a part of that program, and I understand everybody's situation is different, but it is well worth
Thank you.
the expense, which is minimal, to
Right.
give yourself such great tools.
Oh, you are amazing, and I appreciate that more than you know. But thank you, and we're gonna have to have you on again and see how
Absolutely.
things are going. And
Oh, well, I'll be glad to.
oh, just delightful. I know you're gonna continue to do well, but I want to hear more about your travels and more about your
Oh.
education of patients and physicians and nurse practitioners and all people. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank
So when I
you.
hang this
Thank
up,
you.
it's gonna shut us off, but I just want you to
Okay.
know what a delight you are and how much I've enjoyed
Well,
this.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
very
much. I've enjoyed it too.
All right, you take
Thank you,
care.
Dr. Connie.
Uh-huh. Bye.